Hey, everybody, and welcome. When stress begins to wear on us, we don't always reach out to our social support network. Sometimes we think it's easier to just disconnect from our anxiety and stress by otherwise occupying ourselves with endless hours of scrolling through our smartphones or our computers or binge watching Netflix or medicating ourselves with food or drink or porn or drugs. The fact is, though, when we're encountering stress or anxiety or depression, when we're feeling isolated, when we're dealing with the pressures of our careers and our families, our finances and health issues, the current political environment, that's when we need most to shore up our social wellness skills because we were never meant to go it alone. And we're going to talk about that on today's program when we get back. And we are back. Welcome to Living the Six Dimensions of Wellness. I'm Dr. John Michael Salvato. And for those who are tuning in for the first time, this is a program that we offer every week, focusing on one of the six dimensions that make up the vibrant, healthy, magical life that we're meant to experience. And it's a program that we offer freely, a community that's open to everyone. Good morning, my brother. It's a program that builds on what we've just talked about the day before, and maybe articles that we've shared. It's not always video. Sometimes it's an article. Sometimes it's a discussion group. But the purpose is to really begin to foster a sense of community. And so if this is your first time watching us, go ahead and drop a first timer in the comments. Let us know where you're tuning in from. And excuse me, thanks in advance for liking and subscribing to our channel and for sharing this with others if you find value in what we are sharing today. And if you stay tuned until the end of today's broadcast, I'm going to share with you how you can get a copy of our expanded guide to living the 8 dimensions of wellness. It's an expansion on the 6 dimensions of wellness, absolutely free. So stick around and we'll talk about that. So let's go ahead and dive in. But first, the coffee. you know, we all have problems. We all have illnesses and emotional pain in life, and we need one another. We need a shoulder to cry on or somebody to listen. We need a person to trust with our secrets and our insecurities, our dreams and our aspirations. Every single person on the planet craves social relationships and intimacy to one degree or another. We thrive in community, but we become depressed and unhealthy in isolation. So research shows us that people who experience a healthy social integration have a tendency to live healthier lives. They live longer. They heal from illnesses and disease faster. They're more resilient to stress, and they experience a greater level of satisfaction and joy in their lives. We call this ability to live healthier our stress resiliency. And there are 6 keys that I'm going to share with you today to ensure what I believe would be a greater experience of social wellness. And so I want to suggest that you take these in, and if something resonates with you, go ahead and maybe see if you can apply it in your own lives. So go ahead and drop a social wellness in the comments if you're ready for us to dig a little bit deeper. So let's go ahead and get started with the first key. The first key is awareness. See, it's important if we're going to establish and cultivate a greater sense of social wellness that we take time to notice the effects of our relationships with others. Now, that doesn't mean judge those relationships. It simply means to allow awareness to arise, to notice that if that relationship fosters feelings of trust and confidence, mutual respect and compassion, if it feels like a relationship that's established on the grounds of unconditional acceptance, or if it's something else. Our relationships have the power to influence our physical and emotional health. So it's really important that we surround ourselves with people who are on our side. And so if that feeling, as we begin to turn our awareness toward the different relationships in our lives, if we don't feel that a relationship is based on confidence and trust, or mutual respect or compassion, then it might be time to take a closer look at ways that we can fix this. So if this makes sense, go ahead and drop a "make sense" in the comment, and let's move into that second key. Now, that second key, each one of these tie into the one before. So the second key naturally is recognition. See, a lot of times that first step of raising our awareness might leave us a little bit uncomfortable. It might leave us feeling that that we would just rather deny that there are any issues with the relationships in our lives, and that's perfectly natural. It's healthy and it's acceptable to feel uncomfortable when we look at things that deeply. It can be difficult to notice that some of our relationships are unhealthy, or that trust and confidence has been broken. It could be really difficult to understand that we really might not feel good being around certain people in our lives, and that doesn't mean that we don't love those people. It doesn't mean that those people don't have value. See, recognition allows us the space to gently accept the situation as it is, while discerning whether we can realistically mend or heal that damaged or broken relationship. And that's not something we can do in isolation either. So I know this point might be causing some uncomfortable emotions to arise. And so I want to encourage you to take a deep, slow breath in, hold it for 3 seconds, and gently breathe out. Allow your shoulders to drop, allow that tension that might be building as you start to think about those relationships to soften. Know that you're safe with those emotions. Know that you're safe in going through this process, and that the right relationships in our lives always have the potential for healing and strengthening. So again, this isn't about not loving someone when we recognize that there is room for healing, that there's room for growth. And when you're ready to dive deeper, excuse me, go ahead and put deep awareness in the comments for me. Again, take as many deep breaths as you need to just kind of get comfortable with this as we go a little bit deeper, as we go into that third key, which is making space for healing. Now, you just began to do that when you did your deep breathing. Once you've discovered opportunities for healing in your relationships, it's time to make space for the work itself. It doesn't mean that we reject the people who are toxic or unsupportive necessarily. Sometimes we have to do that. It doesn't mean that we reject the person. It means we reject their behaviors, and we see if they're on board with us, with the idea of working together to improve those areas that need help. It also means that we're not judgmental about it. See, when we recognize that it's a person's behavior, it's not the person. And so it's very helpful to say, look, I want you to know I value you. You matter to me. But these behaviors that we engage in, I don't think are very healthy. It doesn't feel healthy to me. And I'd like to know how you feel about that. You'll very quickly understand whether that person is on board. Sometimes they're not ready to begin the healing. It doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It doesn't mean that they don't care. They're just not ready to take that next step and heal, and you are. So that could be a very painful time, and we have to gently let go when that happens. But other times, the person might feel the same way. They may have been uncomfortable themselves to express that, and it might be bothering them as deeply as it's bothering you. And so they may welcome the chance to deepen and enrich that relationship. Now, unfortunately, the realistic fact of the matter is that sometimes people won't be ready. Sometimes they may not even respond nicely. And if you can't physically remove yourself from an unhealthy relationship, then what I recommend is that you find ways to increase the psychological space and the energetic space, the spiritual space, by placing boundaries on your interactions and changing how you communicate with that person. You're in control of that. You can't control their response, but you can control the degree to which you interact with that person. You can create space, some barriers, some boundaries, and that's the way to handle that third key. Now, the fourth key, excuse me, as you start to look at these relationships, that brings us to one of the most important steps, which is to hold your social relationships lightly. See, a lot of people feel so fearful, and so they try to cling to those relationships that matter most to them. They hold them tightly. We're told, hold one another tightly, but some people, according to ancient wisdom, come into our lives for a season. Others come into our lives for a lifetime, and there are others who come in somewhere in between. Our challenge, I think, is to embrace the relationship without clinging, so that there's room for the relationship to grow, room for the relationship to change, to emerge, to heal, and at times to change its expression entirely. I have two very dear friends who met and fell in love, and they got married. And after a period of time, one of the two people discovered that that there was gender dysphoria going on, and that they were actually a trans person. And so, for some people, that would have been the end of the marriage. That would have been the end of the relationship. But these people really understood and embraced what it meant to love one another. And so they allowed that space in the relationship for that relationship to change, to transform, to change its expression. And they're still together to this day. Two beautiful women whose love is just inspiring. So when we find ourselves clinging, or we find ourselves holding too tightly, it's almost always a sign to us that there is something that we don't trust about the relationship. Now, not necessarily about the person, but the relationship itself. There's something that's off. And that's where we have to go back to step one. We have to allow awareness to arise and to show us the points that need healing. Now, the fifth step, after we've allowed that space and allowed that gentle openness to the relationship, is to practice compassionate release. Now, I know that might sound like a new agey, pop culture kind of phrase, or an odd turn of phrase or concept, but compassionate release means that we fully and with a gentle heart filled with love choose to be dedicated to the process of healing, but remain detached from the outcome. See, this is about releasing fear. When we come from a place of love, there is no room in our hearts for fear. And so we recognize that everything in life is impermanent. Sometimes good things happen, sometimes not so much. Just as winter always follows the autumn and spring always follows winter, we can be absolutely sure that the good times are going to follow the bad, and that harder times are going to come up from time to time following the good times. And we're going to survive it all. It's part of the seasons of life. None of us would be freaked out if after a gorgeous summer, the leaves began to turn and it was autumn. None of us would freak out if after a breathtaking display of color in autumn, it began to snow and it was winter. So the seasons that happen in our environment outside of us don't surprise us, but we need to start to recognize that those same seasons take place within us. And finally, the sixth key, and probably the most important step that you can take, that you have absolute control over from start to finish, is ensuring that your own heart and soul and mind and body begin to heal and improve in terms of your social wellness, by taking a look at the fact that change, that shift within you doesn't happen in a vacuum. Studies have shown us that we need to take steps to ensure a healthy gut. Think about this for a minute. When something is off, you say you had a gut feeling. When you meet somebody and you're absolutely enamored with them, you get butterflies in your stomach every time you're around them. The gut is an essential part of each of the six dimensions of wellness. And so we've learned scientifically through research, we've learned that you have to begin to rebalance the gut so that those chemical processes and hormones and vitamins and minerals get absorbed better, and so that our stress resiliency improves. We've learned that when we have healthier gut bacteria, that the body actually produces more serotonin, and our stress resiliency, our ability to handle those things in life, improves. It becomes easier for us to have relationships with people that might have been difficult before. And the good news is that we have a simple holistic protocol that can empower you to begin that healing process for about what you would spend for one trip to the coffee shop each day. You can learn more about that simple protocol by checking out the resources at mentalwellnessmovement.org. That's www.mentalwellnessmovement.org, and you can learn more about that, or reach out to me. I'll be happy to talk to you about that. But now it's time for us to put these 6 keys to work in our lives. And to help you with that, as I said at the beginning of the program, we'd like to give you a free workbook, a workbook that helps us to expand on the 6 dimensions of wellness. It actually takes them into 8 dimensions, breaks them down a little further. And all you have to do to get that free workbook is to request access to our private online community at facebook.com/groups/thinking magically. All one word. That's facebook.com, excuse me, /groups/thinking magically. And that's it, guys, for today's session. I hope that you got value from this. If you did, go ahead and write value in the comments, and maybe share what your best takeaway was from today's program. This is something that I thought about over the weekend during Lupercalia, and I really was looking forward to sharing with you guys. And if you found value, why not share this with folks on your timeline as well? Because you never know when somebody might be needing to hear the message that we share. And finally, as we encourage you guys at the end of every day's programming, I want to thank you, first of all, for tuning in. And I want to encourage you to stay in the moment, because that's where the power is. Allow that moment to be filled with gratitude and a gentle letting go. Because if we can't be grateful for what we have, there is no reason to think you're going to be happier with more. And when we gently let go, we allow those things to unfold the way that they should. And always remember, my friends, the best is yet to come. We'll look forward to talking to you soon. This is Dr. John Michael Salvato for the 6 Dimensions of Wellness. Have a fantastic day.